Welcome back to Choosing to Rise, the podcast about growth, faith, and transformation. I'm your host, Dr. Carolyn Kennedy, and I'm so glad that you're here today. In this episode, we're going to name a truth that often gets lost in the noise of our minds. That voice in your head, sometimes it's not telling you the truth. That voice, sometimes it's not your cheerleader. Sometimes it's your biggest critic. And worse yet, sometimes it's a liar. So in this episode, we're talking about what it means to take those thoughts captive, how to recognize the lies that we've rehearsed in our minds, and how to rise above them with faith and truth leading the way. Do you ever have those moments when one small thought, a doubt, a worry, a memory suddenly grows louder? And before you know it, your mind has taken that tiny thread and spun it into an entire story, a worst case scenario, a reason not to try, a loop of what ifs. I have, and that's when I realize something about the way that my mind works. It doesn't just think, it weaves. Some people say that I have a tendency to be an overthinker. They say that I think too much about basically everything. I disagree. I don't think I'm an overthinker. I'm a spider thinker. Because one thread of doubt or of inspiration can spin into an entire web. So when I talk about spider thinking, let me be clear. The spider in my head, the spider in my mind, it isn't all bad. It doesn't just weave lies. It weaves everything. My dreams, my worries, my ideas, my fears, my hopes. Some of those threads are true and helpful, and some aren't. And don't worry, my spider isn't some creepy black widow. It's more like the spider from Charlotte's Web. It's always weaving, always busy, and sometimes spinning things that I need to question. See, the danger isn't the web itself. The danger is when I get tangled in it without asking, wait, is this thread even true? Is this thread even mine? Is this thread even meant for me? Because here's the thing. The voice in your head doesn't always lie. Sometimes it protects you. It reminds you, it encourages you. But other times, it condemns, it limits, it paralyzes. And it's in those moments that we need to pause and choose which thoughts deserve to stay. For years, I didn't even realize it, but my voice, that spider within my head, I didn't realize how much it controlled my thinking. And in fact, I did everything I could to avoid it. I stayed busy and filled every moment with noise and with doing. Why? Because when everything got quiet and still, that spider in my mind, it didn't just whisper. It roared like a lion. It was overwhelming. So I stayed in motion. But I was only lying to myself when I thought that I could just avoid the voice in my head. When I thought that by avoiding the voice, that I'd make it just go away. Kind of like, when we think that if we avoid our problems, that they just naturally disappear. Well, it didn't work. Actually trying to avoid the voice in my mind, it gave it more power. And it just grew in the background. And it got louder and louder and harder to control. See, the problem isn't just that we hear the lies. It's when we believe them, when we internalize them, and when we let those lies shape our lives. There's a scripture verse that I want to share with you. Some people might think that this is just a topic that's not important, something that's just trivial. But it made the Bible, y'all. So in my mind, that means that it's important. The verse is 2 Corinthians 10:5. And part of it goes, we take captive every thought to make it obedient to Christ. We take captive every thought to make it obedient to Christ. So this verse doesn't mean that we're supposed to ignore our thoughts. But what it does mean is that we're supposed to challenge them. That we don't just accept them as truth. We don't just accept them as the way that we're supposed to live and the way that we're supposed to think about ourselves. So what we need to be thinking about instead is that not every thought is worthy of a seat at our table. Not every thought is worthy. And definitely, not every voice deserves a microphone in our mind. So what if we paused? And what if we asked ourselves, who told me that? And who said it's true? And is that just what I think? Or is that what I know? For me, there's many, many lies that I tell myself. I have a really good friend who is helping me to be more mindful and helping me to remind myself of the power of words. I have a habit of saying things about myself that aren't necessarily positive. Things like, I'm always late, or I can't do that, or you know that's not me. You know I can't do that. That's too hard. I could never do such and such a thing. And she reminds me that when we say it and when we believe it, we're choosing to live it. So there's 3 common lies that I tell myself often that I'm working on reframing. I don't know if these are common for you. But the first one is, I'm not good enough. When I decided last year that I was going to start a business, and I decided that I wanted to write, that I wanted to tap into my creative side that I'd kept tucked down deep for so very long. And when I decided that I wanted to speak, when I decided that I wanted to start this podcast, so many times I told myself, I'm not good enough. I can't do that. I think that idea of not being good enough, I think that comes from maybe times in my life when I was younger and I was criticized. Or that whole idea that I've got to measure up to somebody else. Or that whole idea that my worth is based on my performance. I think that sometimes we believe that we're not good enough to do something because it's so much easier to just simply believe that we can't than to try to do it. It's easier to just simply say, I'm not good enough. Somebody else can do it. And we believe that we're measured by standards of I guess you would say just standards of other people, that we're comparing ourselves to others, and that whole idea that somebody else is better at it. Kind of like when I was growing up, and the whole idea of me learning to do anything in the house, or anything around the house. I always felt like my 3 older sisters were better at it than I was. So I'm not good enough. They can do it, right? But I need to remind myself, and if it applies to you, remind yourself. Maybe if we reframe that whole idea of I'm not good enough, maybe if we reframe that too. I don't need to be perfect to be purposeful. We all have a purpose. That kind of leads into the second one. Kind of like what I talked about in my first episode. Foster girls don't make C's. If I can't do it perfectly, I shouldn't do it at all. Those two kind of go hand in hand. Kind of like if I'm not good enough. But then the whole thing is, well, maybe I'm good. Maybe I'm good. But I'm not perfect. And if it's not perfect, then it's not good enough, right? And so when we think about, oftentimes we think of perfectionism, and we tell ourselves that it's about striving for excellence. And excellence is a good thing, right? We should always strive to be the best that we can be at everything that we do. But I think the key in that is the best that we can be. Not saying that we have to be perfect. It's just about doing our best. And the idea that if I can't do it perfectly, then I shouldn't do it at all. Again, that's about measuring myself up against things that I wasn't meant to measure myself against. Because there was only one perfect person that walked the earth. Spoiler alert, I'm not him. You're not him. Just in case you weren't sure. So the whole idea of perfectionism, of the saying that, well, if it's not perfect, it's not good enough. Who do I think I am to ever even let that notion enter in my mind? Of course it's not going to be perfect. Of course I'm not going to be perfect. Why should I ever expect it to be? So then if you dig deeper than that, that whole perfectionism, that whole saying that we're striving for excellence, it's actually more of a cover-up. It's a fear of failure. It's a fear of shame. It's not about excellence. Because perfection's a fallacy. We can't be perfect. So when we say that we're trying to be perfect, and if we can't be perfect, then we're not going to do it at all, it's a fear of failure. It's a fear that we hide in. Because if we say, then why should we do it at all? Then we're giving ourselves permission to not try. We're giving ourselves permission to stay silent, to stay in the shadows, to stay in the background, to not thrive, and to just let other people do it. We'll let other people be perfect, or at least try to be. So what if we, and I say we, what if we reframe that? Instead of thinking, if I can't do it perfectly, I shouldn't do it at all. Instead, what if we focus on progress mattering more than the polish? I don't know about you, but I get my nails done every 3 weeks. The polish doesn't last. And it's only covering up what's truly underneath it. Progress matters so much more than the polish. A third one that I really, really struggle with. And I don't mean that past tense. I absolutely meant that I struggle with. It's current, it's ongoing, it's daily. It's that idea that other people have things figured out. And I don't. is that notion that I'm going to wait. I'm going to stay hidden. I'm going to stay silent while I figure it out. I'm not going to risk. I'm not going to venture. I'm not going to try until I get it all figured out. And it's that belief that for whatever reason, other people have things figured out, but I don't. When we think about, or at least for me, I don't know about you, have you ever had an experience, a time in your life when you were with a group of other people and they're talking about something, and in your mind you're thinking, what on earth are they talking about? What they're saying doesn't make any sense at all. But instead you convince yourself that they must be right and then you must be wrong. You convince yourself that you're overthinking things, or you convince yourself that your way of thinking has got to be wrong because, they've got to be right. They've got to be the ones that have it all figured out. And so if you're questioning it, the issue's in you. That you're the one with the issue because they've got it all figured out and you don't. And you silence your voice. You don't speak up. We compare ourselves to others. Well, I shouldn't say we do. I compare myself to others. And sometimes I let that comparison, that belief that other people have things figured out that I don't have figured out, sometimes I let that belief limit me. I let it be the basket that I hide under, the corner that I shrink into, the crowd that I hide myself in the center of, kind of like the Where's Waldo. The idea that we think that we're going to have things all figured out. You guys, life is a maze. Do you remember when you were a kid and you'd get that kiddie menu and it would have the little maze on the back for you to be able to say, you start here and you have to figure out how to go through the maze and how to get to where you're going? Do you remember how as a child you didn't worry about taking the wrong turn? You'd take that crayon that they gave you and you'd start tracing your way from the start here. And if you went the wrong way, you didn't care. You just backed up and you started over again. And you tried again. And you tried again. And then when you finally found your way, you celebrated. What happened to that? When did we lose that? When did we decide that we had to have it all figured out? When did we decide that we had to wait? And that it wasn't okay to take a wrong turn and then go back and start again? What happened to us? You guys, life is a maze. Each one of us have our own unique journey that we're on. Each one of us has our own maze that we have to navigate. Our own labyrinth. But the lie in the labyrinth is that you have to know the way out before you can take the first step. That's the lie in the labyrinth. The maze is about trusting that as long as we continue to move forward in faith, it's going to be okay. We're going to find our way. We may take one extra twist, 3 extra turns. We may have to go back and start over a few gazillion times. But the joy is in the journey. It's in the trying. It's in the learning. It's in the falling and getting dusty and standing up and dusting that dust off, standing in the ashes of the mess and continuing in the journey anyway. Life is a maze. Embrace it. And I say that as much for you as I do for myself. We don't have to know every turn. We don't have to have our GPS set to get us to the final destination, because we don't even know where that is. We just have to take the next step in faith and trust that although we don't know the whole picture, although we don't know how the map is going to unfold, He does. And that's what matters. So when you're holding yourself back thinking, I don't have it figured out yet, I don't know all the different steps. If you're thinking, I have to wait, I have to shrink, I have to hide, other people have it figured out, and I don't. Just remember, you're not behind. You're becoming. You're becoming. And only you can stop that. Don't let anybody else stop it. And don't let that spider in your head, when they're weaving the lie, don't let them do it. I've been journaling a little bit more lately than I used to in the past. Like I said, I've got a friend that's helping me to be more mindful. And I've got a therapist that's doing the same. So thinking about the lies that I tell myself, I want to give you a challenge. Start a truth journal. And on one page, write all the lies that the spider in your head is telling you, or the lies that social media is telling you, or the lies that maybe even your well-intentioned friends or colleagues, co-workers might be telling you. And then on the page next to it, start writing the truth. One line at a time. And you'll shift your story. You'll shift your story. When we stop focusing on the lies and we start focusing on the truth. There's a quote that I heard recently from a gentleman by the name of Craig Groeschel. He's the author of a book called Winning the War in Your Mind. I haven't read the book yet, but I plan to. But the quote goes, "You are not what others think you are. You're not even what you think you are. You're what God knows you are." One more time. You are not what others think you are. You are not even what you think you are. You are what God knows you are. One other thing I want to remind you of, and remind myself of, is that oftentimes the lies we tell ourselves, they feel familiar, almost like a warm, cozy blanket. Why? Because we've believed them, and we've lived in them, and we've wrapped ourselves in them for so long. So when I say that I'm always late, that's familiar. When I say that I shop when I'm stressed out, when I say that that's retail therapy, instead of saying it's a problem or that it's an addiction, that's a lie that I've wrapped myself in. When I say that I'm not good enough, when I say that if it's not perfect, I shouldn't even try, when I say that other people have it all figured out and I don't, it feels familiar. Like my warm, cozy purple blanket. Familiar. But just because it's familiar doesn't mean that it's true. That's why we rise to reflection. And we have to replace the noise with the truth. Thank you for spending this time with me today. I hope that this episode has reminded you that that voice in your head If it's speaking doubt, please remember that the voice in your mind, you are the listener. You are the filter. You're the child of God. You get to choose what takes root. So just because the thought came to visit, maybe because it came multiple times, doesn't mean that it gets to stay rent-free. You get to choose what voices, what stories, what definitions of you that stay. You choose. So before we go, it's time for our one good hello to give. This is a small soul-centered step that I'll share with you each time. It's a step that you can take to nurture your growth in whatever season that you're walking through. So this week's one good hello to give, I challenge you to start a journal, to write down 1 page of truths and 1 page of lies. Start with at least one. Write down 1 lie that you've believed. And right below it, right directly below that lie, write the truth. Say that truth out loud. Let that become your new rhythm. I'm Carolyn Kennedy, and I'll meet you right here again next time. But until then, keep choosing to rise and learning to thrive, one good hello at a time. Thank you.